We'd like to welcome everybody for our final week 12, Invoking the Divine to Thrive. So we're going to do our thing here. We're going to take and ding the donger and say to yourself, I am aligning with, and say your name. I am aligning with, and say your name. I am aligning with, say your name. Thank you.
All right, we're
So
all
we're gonna
back.
get
Here we are,
going.
invoking the divine to thrive. Now, I want you to answer this question intuitively with your gut response rather than your logical stance. So when I ask you, where do you look to God? Under a stressful moment, when you turn to God, where do you look? Do you look up? Intuitively thinking about God in our childhood nature above the clouds? Do you visualize your favorite place in nature, where we see God in nature? Or do you think about where you attend church, where you feel the Spirit? All of these things are okay, but we need to ask ourselves if the belief that we have in our relationship with the divine still applies to you.
So, God within. I'd like to tell you that God is within each and every one of us. Our task is to dissect our childhood beliefs about God so that we can receive God from within ourselves. Do you see God as a punisher, rewarder, savior, redeemer, or a man? While neither is good or bad, these expressions support our understanding of God through our ability to conceptualize. But I want you to conceptualize this spark of God within each of you, and that when you love yourself, you're actually loving God, and vice versa.
That's right. So we want to talk about the difference between our human or our ego desires versus our spirit or soul desires. Now, in the human experience, we all want ease in our relationships. We want people to be loving and engaged without a lot of combat. And I know that in my training in past life regressions, we find that the healing that we need to do from our relationships from the past tend to show up as siblings, parents, spouse, friends, any of these opportunities where we're invested in a relationship. Of course, that's not always easy, but that's what we desire is ease. We want financial abundance. Everybody wants a sense of freedom to be able to do what they want to do without the limitations of the 9-to-5 job. We of course want to avoid pain and hardship. It's hard to look at our traumas from our past because innately we want to avoid what causes us pain. We're pleasure seeking. We want to enjoy the good that the world can offer through food and drink and relationships and fun and travel. We focus on ourselves. Every experience that we have, we will look at how that applies to us. Even when we see outside experiences that other people that are experiencing, if they're in a relationship with us, we will innately say, how does this apply to me? We tend to have a limited perspective because we're only viewing things from our perception. And as we know, trauma in our past is perception-based. And of course, when we've had challenges, we will look at the challenge and ask why something happened. Now this, as we've said before, can be very disempowering, but it's the human experience. Of course, we want to find answers. So we enter our mind in the analytical mind. However, doing so, studies say that actually makes your brain more dysregulated. Now, of course, in the spirit or the soul desires, we want mastery of self. We came to this experience to master the human experience through the emotions that we engage in. We want to expand our consciousness through our thoughts. We learn through adversity. Although nobody will consciously say, give me all the challenges that I can endure, but on a spiritual level, those challenges will spark us to start looking for answers from within. It'll spark us to be the searching for the divine or the bigger picture. We recognize from a spiritual standpoint that life is a school. We're here to learn, and we are in the accelerated learning process. I think everybody on this planet signed up for the front row of accelerated learning. Now, we also recognize that there is meaning in all things, even though we don't recognize the meaning at the time and maybe years later. If we look back, we can see that there is meaning in all things, that there is no accident. Nature is law, and it follows a very concise pattern. And we are here to experience greater love, sometimes through adversity, sometimes through challenges, that we can embrace this greater love. And from the spiritual standpoint, we trust in the process.
So, loneliness and mental emotional health. In a 2019 study, half the people over 65 found TV or a pet as their sole source of comfort. That's pretty sad. You know, social isolation causes cellular changes that cause inflammation and body breakdown, and even cancer. Higher rates of suicidal thoughts, anxiety, depression, heart disease. Often these things include a feeling of disconnection from divine guidance. And when we get confused, like what's been happening, you know, nothing seems real, you need to settle in and find that God within.
Yes, and did you notice that we said 2019? This is when the study took place. Well, what's happened since 2019? Isolation and limitation from family and loved ones. So this number is way different than it was back then. And so we can recognize that when half of the adults age 65 or older had this experience in 2020, that was exponentially higher. So suffering. Now, Dr. Martin Seligman defined the 3 P's suffering from trauma. You're bouncing a lot.
Well, thank you.
I don't know that. So he defines suffering from these 3 P's, which was personalization, pervasiveness, and permanence. Now, in personalizations, when we've had trauma or we've had some pain in our past or even illness, we may personalize it and think that the believing that we are at fault for the trauma. Now, this happens a lot through sexual abuse or domestic abuse. We personalize this, especially if it happens when we're children. Now, we also have that pervasiveness that trauma integrates in all areas of our life. It's all encompassing. We can feel the umbrella and the heaviness of our past, and we tend to carry it much like Pigpen on Charlie Brown with that cloud. That's what this is in our trauma experiences. And then the sense of permanence, that the belief that the pain and the symptoms that we have will never end. We've carried it so long that it becomes part of our identity.
It's all connected. Trauma is more than just symptoms in the brain and body. Healing requires looking at your spiritual relationships as well as the physical and emotional connections with others. To have wholeness, we must build a healthier relationship with our own soul.
That's right. Now I'm going to share another set of 3 P's in trauma, and this was written by Dr. Keisha Ewers. She studied unhealed trauma and the effects that it has long term. Statistically, people with unhealed trauma, specifically childhood trauma, tend to develop what would medically be termed as an autoimmune disease. And when they fall into these categories, it's usually because they carry these 3 P's. Perfectionism, where they never feel like they're good enough. They're always striving for more, and they tend to be very, very critical of themselves if something isn't just right. People pleasing, where others' needs are more important than your own. You bypass your own emotional state to make sure that everyone else is okay. It's too hard to look at ourselves, so we fawn and people please other people's needs. And then, of course, holding on to past pain, where we haven't forgiven the experience. We hold on to it rather than forgiving, because letting it go makes us vulnerable and it keeps us from moving forward.
Now, the spiritual crisis, you cannot have a traumatic event or physical crisis without a spiritual crisis either on its heels or going before you have it. And so it's usually brought on by an event that you did not anticipate but which affected you very deeply. So, like a diagnosis of disease, going through a divorce, miscarriage or loss of a loved one, loss of a career.
Yes, so all of those, if you've had any of those experiences, you may have said to yourself or to people around you, or even at least felt, I'm in a dark night of the soul. This language is used in that transformation, that burning off. But the original account of the dark night of the soul was written by the 16th century Carmelite priest and Spanish poet who was imprisoned after he followed the guidance that he said was given to him by God. Now, with only God as his companion, this Carmelite priest documented his mystical odyssey and while he was hungry and cold in a purified, wet prison. Now, this Carmelite priest was John of the Cross, and he was the one who originally coined this term, Dark Night of the Soul, and wrote a beautiful transcript about that experience.
And it wasn't a purified cell, it was a putrefied
Did I say
cell.
purified?
Yes.
Oh, it's putrefied.
Well, I'm playing Tigger over here bouncing, so you can do the stuff. So the personal dark night of the soul is a very difficult thing to get through, but we always shift our consciousness while we're going through it. We have a breakdown and then move into a breakthrough. Confronting your history and how life failed you, you get anger, frustration, fear, realizing that life isn't fair, stripped of any outdated identity, understanding that life won't change until you change internally. And that's why we go through this dark night.
Yeah, but that one doesn't come for a while. That's the last step, is understanding that you have to change in order for your circumstances to change as well. Now, ultimately, it means we have a greater self-discovery. And in this greater self-discovery, we learn to love self more. We recognize the burdens and the trials and the heaviness that we've had to endure, and we tend to love ourselves more. Old rules and beliefs no longer apply. When you have your life pulled out from under you, then that unstable moment, all of a sudden you're like, none of this works for me anymore. Nobody taught me how in a home ec class in high school had to endure these kind of challenges. There isn't often people in our immediate family or friend group who has experienced the same things as us, so we have nothing to work off of. And so we have to start creating our own rules. Relationships will change because who we are changes. Old relationships that no longer are a vibrational match will tend to dissipate, and new relationships start to come in. We start to resonate in a different level. We also learn to live a more authentic life, often looking at our past that we were living a life that was never meant to be ours in the first place. We develop more empathy and compassion because when we've struggled so much and we know what it's like to endure, we tend to open our hearts to someone else who's going through those experiences. And life has greater meaning. We tend to honor those beautiful sacred moments. And ultimately, if we do our inner work, we can develop post-traumatic growth.
Now, post-traumatic growth, what is it exactly? We have a new or a renewed appreciation for life, stronger, more meaningful relationships, greater clarity of our life purpose, enhanced personal strengths, spiritual growth and deeper wisdom, and greater empathy for self and others. We actually can have more compassion.
That's right. But it takes a spiritual awakening. And if anybody who is listening to this has had this experience, it's ugly. It's not a pleasant experience. It's not easy, and it's very, very challenging. I have had these experiences where you're just looking up into the heavens going, why me? You want to scream out on the mountaintop, why am I enduring this level of pain? How come I'm just feeling the way that I'm feeling with no end in sight? We end up having feelings of confusion and frustration, anger, sadness, grief, and isolation. We feel isolated from our world around us because nobody understands what we're going through. This is because of the intense time of personal growth. It's burning off. We are in this dark night of the soul, burning off the residue of our past history, burning off the pain, burning off the emotional state that no longer fits, and we are purifying who we are. And I want to say, you are not going crazy. You are evolving.
I like to evolve.
Me too.
So the aspects of going through this dark night of the soul, it helps us to thrive, believe it or not. We develop more of a love for self and others. We develop more joy as an act of being, peace with ourself and our life, connection with others on a better level, a higher level, forgiveness of our past and the past of others, willingness to change.
Yes.
You know, today I had a lady who had difficulty with her dad and brothers, and I said, you need to ho'oponopono because you're having all your troubles happen on your right side. And so when we go through these things, it does cause us to get injured in some ways. And as we make those repairs with our life, we make repairs in our body and our emotions.
Yes, before you go on, when you're talking about the right side, maybe we should clarify when there's an issue in the physical body, it's a representation of our experiences. The right side tends to be present time and or masculine energy. The left side tends to be our past and or our feminine energy. So that's what Scott's referring to, is make peace with the dad and brothers. It's a masculine energy, and the symptoms are appearing during in current time. So
yeah, she'd always get injured on the right side, and she needs to make peace with her dad and brothers.
That's right. Okay, so doing our inner work. As we said, it's not an easy experience. We never fully arrive into this new journey. It's always a continuation and a building upon. We become more with greater capacity to do what we couldn't do in the past. Now it takes raising our energy. We've talked about this throughout this entire course because our emotional state is the magnetic energy that pulls energy into matter. We draw to us based upon our emotional state. So in order to change the circumstances, we need to change our emotions to an elevated state, raising our energy to a higher emotional state. Love, gratitude, compassion, all-encompassing energy of joy and being at this elevated state. If you think of something that you want, and and the emotions that you have of why you don't have that, look back at those emotions because that's what's holding you back from being at this state. Now also we raise our consciousness. When we have these experiences, it peels off that old identity. So we have to change our thoughts. We have to raise our thoughts. We recognize that somebody who's very wealthy is not going to have the same thoughts of somebody who's living on the street. Somebody who's in a healthy, loving, nurturing relationship is not going to have the same thoughts as somebody who feels isolated and alone. And recognizing that whatever it is we desire, that there is a state of being that's out there once we can recognize that and draw that to us. We have to raise our spirituality, connecting to the divine and letting go of what no longer fits. We're always in this space of evolution. We're always in the space of creating, or we are breaking down. And if we're breaking down, we tend to be held into our past. So to be in a creative state, we have to let go of what doesn't fit and move into another state of being. When we do this, we can learn to start following our intuitive nature. And as we start following our intuitive nature, our gifts start to appear. Now, each one of us was born with spiritual gifts or gifts that we are here to share with the whole. All of us were also born with challenges to overcome. We didn't come here on a clean slate, as much as somebody might want to believe that. There was encoding in our DNA. There's destiny that is already encoded within us that is setting the tone for the direction of our life. Now, once our gifts start to appear, you have an obligation to self to start using these and aligning with your purpose.
So the necessary P in healing trauma, persistence. You know, when I had that question with St. Germain, what do we do about all the toxins, radiation, chemicals, and problems that we're having on the planet? I was persistent. I literally prayed every day for 6 months until I finally got my answer. And persistence means you're actively engaging in the healing process or the process of questioning everything, deciding what story is your identity, and not letting anything or anyone interrupt your intentions to be healed and whole. Greater resilience and adapting to change gives you more wisdom and more capacity to do what you need to do. So remember, persistence is very important. So keep persisting.
Yes, and again, before we move on, go back, please. When Scott talks about with greater wisdom, he's referencing that we could experience things from a textbook all day long. Knowledge is always available to us. But once we're having the experience, once we're engaged and our boots on the ground in the healing paradigm, there's an enormous amount of wisdom that is given to us. Once we experience this level of wisdom, we can also share it with others. Okay, so this is a quote about the science of God. The universe in which we find ourselves and from which we cannot be separated is a place of law and order. It is not an accident nor chaos. It is organized and maintained by an electrodynamic field capable of determining the position and movement of all charged particles. Now that's a very big sentence to all encompassing about what the field of energy is, what energy is from a science standpoint. This is written by Dr. Harold Saxton Burr. Now why is he important? Anyone who has researched some of his work, he originally started by measuring the field of energy with an egg. And he took the polarities between the negative and the positive polarity and was able to measure the field of energy around an egg. Now he advanced this study into studying women who had ovarian cancer. And many women that also didn't have ovarian cancer, but they had the same markers in their field as those who had ovarian cancer. Now, the ones who didn't have cancer, but also had that marker in their field of energy, developed ovarian cancer within the year. Now, why is this important for us to recognize? It's scientific fact that everything happens in the field before it happens in matter, in energy before matter, in our field before body. The end results and our experiences in the physical dynamic is the last domino when we have symptoms. And we have to look back at healing the field before we can heal the body. In order to do that, what does it take? Raising our emotions, raising our thoughts, and raising our state of being. So this is why this is very important and shows that the science of God exists.
So the 12th chakra is the celestial body, and it's the outermost ring around our body of our auric field. Located on the outer edge of our energy system, this is our soul's connection to the great cosmos. This chakra is one of mastery of our soul's purpose through the human experience. So the sacred truth is we make universal consciousness a part of us when we make things right in our celestial body. And that's why it's so important to do our inner work.
That's right. So in the 12th chakra, when there is an emotional deficiency, this will show up as fear of completion and transformation. Again, the 12th chakra is all about completion. So when we have unfinished business that we start and don't finish, and we start another project and don't finish, it's a dysregulation in this 12th chakra. Feeling disconnected from divine love and divine timing, recognizing that all things exist in divine timing. Not trusting your connection with your spiritual wisdom or your intuitive nature. And when you pull back and limit from contributing to the whole, Usually this is because of pain. We want to protect ourselves, so we tend to pull back rather than supporting others. And what this is doing is we're drawing from the field of energy rather than contributing to the field. So do you want to draw from the field or contribute to the field? Of course, in a creative manner, we're contributing to this field of energy. And when we can contribute, then we take our life back into our own hands. Now, to balance the 12th chakra, finish tasks in a timely manner. Open your awareness to other dimensions. This is not the only dimension that exists. We all know this. Open our awareness intuitively and tap into that. Visualize divine light and pure light pouring through our energy channels, starting at the top of the head, and allow this energy to wash through our cells and all of our chakra systems, making us more balanced and whole.
Now, and you have to use breath work to assist you in doing this, because breath work connects us to the divine by calming our body down, getting the parasympathetic system going. We don't make contact with the divine when we're in fight or flight.
That's right.
We need to get into our parasympathetic
Isn't that the truth?
system.
Because when we have challenges, of course, that's the time where we feel like God abandoned us. And we're thinking, why? Why have you forsaken me at a time in my greatest need? But it's us who's pulled away in our dysregulated state.
So, a mystic without a monastery. A mystical life is one of deep awareness and communication with the divine. We're not swayed by emotional reactions to the outer events. We're seeking the truth in all things, where and how we contribute to humanity. And every part of us belongs to be congruent with the whole. In other words, we need to be one with one another. And right now, divisiveness is the rule of the law and disorder and discord that's being created around us. And so we need to maintain that unity consciousness with others.
And allowing for grace. Now, grace, that we use the language of grace when we are buoyed up during a painful experience. We recognized this many years ago. It's 9 years ago that we had a beautiful grandbaby born, and he passed away the night before our wedding of our daughter was getting married the next morning. And I think we've shared this before, but that was so all-encompassing, and our emotions were swayed to both ends of the spectrum and everything in between. We wanted to be with one of our children who had lost a child and wanted to be present in the grief of losing this beautiful, precious life. And we also wanted to be present with a new family member coming in and our daughter celebrating her next step in her journey. Now, I'm experiencing this right now. One of my very, very dear friends passed away yesterday. And I've been very blessed to be present with her for the last 8 months as she did a very, very valiant attempt in healing from cancer. And I've been lucky enough to be with her every week, sometimes multiple times in the week, to be with this beautiful friend, Miranda. She touched my heart and my soul in ways that I can't describe. And obviously the grief has been immense, but I feel her presence, I feel her love, I feel her connection, and I know that she will always be with me. But when we are locked into what was and trying to hold on to what was, of course, I want to remember every aspect of her, and I want to savor those sacred moments. But I also know that that is part of me now, and I can move forward. And when we allow for grace, we have to look at how much of our energy is focused on past events. Of course, we want to savor the beauty, and we can obviously learn from the experiences, but we have to keep our attention in present time as much as possible. And we ask, how often do you limit your ability to move forward by asking, why did this happen to me? Why would this beautiful girl whose birthday is in 2 weeks and who wanted to live, She wanted with all her heart to live, and that God had a bigger plan. And of course we can ask why, 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times, but I'm never going to receive that answer in this physical level. I can intuitively guess, and I can have a connection, but I don't have all the answers, and we may never have all of the answers while we're embodied in the physical form. We have to recognize, though, that nothing in our outer world has authority over us. We determine how to move forward, and we can have grace carry us during the most challenging experiences when we enter contemplation and silence, and recognizing that all things are answered from within.
So, tools for transformation. In channeling grace, we're actually channeling a type of forgiveness and love that God gives all of us through the grace. And Mother Mary represents that grace because she was the mother of Jesus. And Jesus carried forward that grace. Reflect on how you see your healing progress these last 12 weeks. Look at your life. If you haven't made any changes, look at what you're doing. Are you doing the applications? Are you using any of the tools we've given you? What arises within you each time you are reminded of your past traumas? Do you have the trauma come back to you again? Or are you dealing it on a higher level? What arises within you each time that you are in these past traumas? Because how you deal with them now hopefully is improved and we're moving forward in our lives. Where do you feel doubt in the healing process? How are you tormented with impatience for answers? Now, these are very important questions that each one of you need to ask yourselves.
That's right. Notice when you choose to react to events and when you choose to listen and perceive through a higher consciousness.
Yep. It's all right. She's been through a lot. She had a trauma yesterday of a good friend dying.
Yeah.
And that's very hard on you, especially when you did everything you could to stop that from happening. And I saw Vicki just do everything she knew, and yet there was an important thing for Miranda to do on the other side. And that's why she crossed over.
Yeah.
But write down one thing that needs healing in each of the following categories. We're going to go through those categories.
What is one negative emotion that you are willing to let go? Who is one person you still need to forgive? What is one addiction that no longer serves you? And it obviously never served us, but addiction is a numbing agent to support us as we're going through pain. And what is one area of your health that needs your attention?
Commit to daily self-reflection on these areas for the next 2 weeks. You know, look at the videos again, watch them again. You know, when you get bored during Thanksgiving, don't turn on the football game. Turn on one of these videos and see what you can learn again and apply what you learn. Choose to act on the guidance that you received rather than just listen and do nothing. When you act, that's when you change.
Yes, so moving forward, reflect on what you have learned, and I'm sorry, my eyes are burning incessantly. Reflect on what you have learned and how you will apply these lessons into your life. As my eye burns, really like cayenne is in there. Rather than being done and putting away the notes, which we can tend to do. We have these 12 weeks. You may finish this class tonight and shake off your hands and put it away. But rather than being done, what is your next step in cultivating a healthier life? This isn't a one and done. This is a continuation. And set intentions in writing and take active steps in the questions that Scott just barely read, that we just barely read. Set an intention to move forward by application. And then, of course, keep doing the emotional work. which I'm doing right now.
When you're setting your intentions in writing, you're actually setting goals for yourself. And goals have been shown to be very useful in moving your life forward, because if we didn't have goals, we'd just stay stagnant.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, so cinnamon and frankincense are our oils that we're talking about. Frankincense is the oil of the kings. It's the anointing oil. It's the one that is the holy oil. Cinnamon, we encourage that you use a carrier oil because it can be hot, especially if you're using it topically. So using like coconut oil or olive or almond oil, any of those things if you apply it topically. Now, cinnamon is enhanced receptivity, increased sense of joy, muscle pain, supports healing from sexual trauma, and overcoming vulnerability and fear. Now, frankincense brings the system back into balance. Spiritual connections, meditation, focus, wounds, brain injury, anxiety, and depression. Now, frankincense is a beautiful oil to use on all of our chakra points, and it's a protecting oil. If you're engaging with somebody energetically, a great way to help do a shield of protection because of the vibration of the frankincense oil. Applying it to the top of your head, applying it to your throat can help open up your ability to speak. And on the back of the head, it's a protecting oil. So it's and obviously on the bottom of your feet.
Yes, and frankincense was a gift to us. Believe it or not, it's an amazing, protective, great oil that also happens to kill viruses.
That's right. In the twilight of life, God will not judge us on our earthly possessions and human success, but rather on how much we have loved. This is written also by John of the Cross.
So in review, we each are being called to be empowered from within ourselves by doing our inner work. Reflection and contemplation are support tools in our relationship with the divine, who is you. We are the divine. Transformation comes from letting go of what no longer serves us. And so remember, when you let go of something, make sure that it's stuff that doesn't help you, but sucks your energy out. So bring in stuff that brings your energy back, because as we heal emotional trauma, our energy level actually improves. Our immune system improves. Our brains can think better. And we can create better because we have all our energy returned to us by getting rid of our trauma and emotional stuff.
That's right. So we have questions here. That fell. Sorry about that.
Now, while she's finding the questions, I'm just going to put out an opportunity. Vicki and I are both professional mentors. We've mentored people for now 6 years. And we are offering to continue mentoring. Now, we usually charge $3,600 for 12 weeks of mentoring, but we've reduced that for all of you. You can apply and we can do personal mentoring with emotional trauma for you. And we'll do that for $2,000 for another 12 weeks of personalized mentoring.
One-on-one, yes.
So one-on-one, which is, not as much money as you think. But it does cover the expense of us going through the mentoring of you, and it's very valuable. And I know a lot of people are thinking, oh yeah, $2,000, we don't know what's coming. But by doing the mentoring, you will actually thrive and have abundance coming to you because you're doing the work and you're constantly getting help. And we have methods that help you get what you truly want in your life. So this is an opportunity that we're offering, and go ahead.
As a continuation.
Yeah, as a continuation if you want to continue. But
yes.
we're going to be done with the weekly group mentoring.
For now, but we're already feeling inspired for next year, so
Yes.
we'll see. Okay, Helen, thank you. Okay, I intend to listen to every one of your modules starting with 1 all the way through 12. Thank you very much. Katie, thank you so much. and Cheryl, a lot of love. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I feel it. Blessings, heartfelt condolences. I really thank you. Bless our beautiful Miranda, truly one of the most beautiful gifts of my life. As friends and loved ones pass away, how can we... Okay, here's the question. As friends and loved ones pass away, how can we best hold the energy of the Holy Spirit to best comfort ourselves and others? I encourage not to block the emotion or shut it down. I woke up this morning with a massive headache because I had cried so hard. Even though I knew she was passing, yesterday I could feel it. My maternal energy wanted to go and hold her, wanted to rescue her, even though I knew it was within minutes. I was already tapped in. And I knew when she passed because the void was already permeating. I could tell that the essence was no longer present. So as we grieve, and many of you know that I lost my father earlier this year as well. So it's been an interesting year for me in my process, and I've had the support of my family, which has been very beautiful. But as we comfort ourselves and allow the Holy Spirit, I think it's healthy to just be present with self as much as possible. Beautiful Katie that's on here sent me some great little videos to make me laugh. I think it's great to engage in love, to be with loved ones, to remember and talk about that person, remember the things that we loved about them, and to allow grief to happen. What I knew in my experience with my father is grief comes in immense waves. It's like a tsunami, but it lasts very short period. It's not something that lasts for 24 hours. It'll come in, and it's just like the transition of labor. It's intense, and then it dissipates. It's intense, and it dissipates, and we apply ourselves to a new state of normal. We never fully heal from this experience, but we engage in another form of normal, and we create a new normal. And we all are losing people. This world has had a number of losses and pain, and unfortunately, I think many of us know we're going to see more of that. And so holding our hearts, being still in reverence, and just allowing the body to feel what it needs to feel, I think it's really healthy. The 3 rules that I have in anybody who's healing from loss, you only have 3 things to do, and that's to get sleep, because your body needs the rest. You're going through a lot of emotional process. Hydrate, you need to drink a lot of water. Tears take a lot of energy, and hydration is really important. So eat little and hydrate, and then move the body when it feels right. There's a lot of energy that's stirring in the body. So movement is healthy. Take a walk with a friend, be with somebody, speak and share with somebody who has that collective energy. Sleep, hydrate and food, and then moving your body. Those are the 3 rules of engagement, and then just allowing the process.
Now, another thing about this is, I know that death is not the end. In fact, I've had 5 near-death experiences, but I wanted to come back, and I know that we can actually, we have the power. We are creators. And knowing that death is not the end, when you get to the other side, you go through a life process, a life review. Now, if you did your work in this life, the review will be very pleasant. If you didn't do your life review will be a little less happy, because you'll realize where you fell short. But God is a loving God, and God takes us and loves us and does whatever we need to move forward. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to help all of you move forward. And believe it or not, me and Vicki had a lot of stuff come up during this 12 weeks. Because when you're dealing with emotional trauma and you're teaching about it, all your emotional trauma comes up.
Your feet are on the fire, aren't they?
Yeah, and our feet were in the fire, believe me. And we've grown a lot. When we were asking those questions, I was like, wow, well, I'm different. I've made a lot of shifts during this 12 weeks. And we hope you have too. And if you haven't, that's why we make the opportunity available. But for now, we'll just, is there another question?
Yes, okay. So the next one, Ron, thank you for he wrote, how do you spell love? Piglet, you don't, you feel it.
Yep.
I love Winnie the Pooh quotes, they're amazing. Okay, so one of the questions is, do you have any suggestions or tools to use that can support your children from any generational trauma that may have been passed down to you? So here's my suggestions. One, recognize what those generational traumas were. Was there abuse? Was there neglect? Was there to shut down where we withheld love? Identify what those were, and then from a very logical standpoint, stop it and show a different way. When you see what was there and you identify what was there, it's our responsibility to stop the cycle. Now, all of the work that we do, so many energy healers will say we're affecting 7 generations back or forward. However many generations we're affecting, we know that there is an impact and that time is not a linear experience. And so identify what those are, and then when you catch yourself, I think it's really healthy to write those down and really sit with that. Like, what is the trauma that we're identifying without just having a very vague perspective of what trauma is? Identify what was the actual trauma, the generational, and then start looking deeper. Why did they behave the way that they did? Start intuitively. And a beautiful thing that you can do is write a letter to an ancestor from a spiritual standpoint, doing soul-to-soul letter. We've talked about it in another training. But sit down and say, for instance, you had a great-grandmother Mary, and write down in prayer and in a soul-to-soul, write, Dear Grandmother Mary, these are the things that I know about you. I know that you were abusive and angry, and I know that you beat your children and that you weren't loving, and I heard that you never knew how to say I love you. Why was that? What was it about you that behaved the way that you did? Because hurt people hurt people. And then once you get everything that you think you know about that person, I want to know more. Turn the page, go into intuition, and put pen to paper and write the answer. Dear Katie, from great-grandmother Mary, and allow that answer to come, and then intuitively trust the information that you receive. Now, one other aspect that I will add to this is we also got gifts from our ancestors. No matter who they were, we didn't just get pain. We didn't get a baggage of rocks or a bag of coal. There was also gifts that they came. And when we sit and recognize what were the gifts that they gave us? What was passed down into my lineage to support the next generation, and start utilizing those gifts? So first, identify what they were, go soul to soul, and when you identify what the challenges were, the ancestor trauma, what were they? Stop the process, learn more, be willing to learn more and investigate, because when you learn more, you can have greater compassion for the experience rather than holding a judgment or anger, and then also recognize that there was gifts as well and start integrating those. So I hope that was helpful.
And the biggest thing, when you overcome all your emotional trauma, guess what happens? It goes back to your ancestors and it goes forward through your children. And so you can affect a major change in your entire lineage. So know that this can happen.
Yes, and many people, we hear information, we're like, yeah, you're right, I get it. But we don't actually apply. Wisdom means nothing if we don't apply it. So The next question is suggestions for learning more about Saint Germain's teaching. So I think this one's for you.
Well, Saint Germain, they have 38 books that they put out between 1934 through 78. And teachings that were brought through from the divine, from the ascended masters, even from the Elohim are in those books. And, my greatest gift from Saint Germain was the gift of hope for this planet, because he's here to help us get ready for the ascension process. And what is that? The ascension process is not just getting a renewed body, but moving into a fifth dimensional body, made of light, crystalline energy, and love. And this is so important because we're going to be the generation to go through that experience. And it's going to be magnificent. And so just know that there are multiple sites on the internet that have information about Saint Germain. And I love the one.
You carry some too that people can order, right? Do you still have some?
Yeah, we have some of the books.
Some of the I am teachings.
Some of the I am teachings and books. And we actually have Saint Germain every Wednesday morning from 9:30 to 10:30 at our office. And we do a lot of the teachings. But the main thing to realize is Mark and Claire Prophet made the most beautiful website called summitlighthouse.net or .org, one of those. But if you go there, you can find many beautiful teachings and beautiful quotes from Saint Germain and the other ascended masters. In fact, I refer to this website all the time because they have beautiful drawings of the different ascended beings and the Elohim and all these different beings that are there to assist us. And the more you seek, the more you will find. And so just know, as you seek the wisdom from Saint Germain, Jesus, Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, Kuan Yin, all these ascended beautiful beings, you will bring shifts in your own consciousness. So yes, I love finding information about Saint Germain. And
the question is, what is that website again? Can you say that website
it's
again?
summitlighthouse.org. It might be the summitlighthouse.org, but it's an excellent website with many, many teachings of Saint Germain. In fact, Mark and Claire Prophet wrote probably 30 books about Saint Germain and the visits they received. And you know, my two books, The Next Step in Human Evolution, was dictated to me by Saint Germain. Literally, he told me what to write. And I just did what he told me. And then he told me to go down to South America and heal Father Gabriel. And that's a wonderful book that has many beautiful teachings too. So just know that we have lots of books, lots of information that's very good. And, you know, going to Mount Shasta shifts everybody's energy. That is a magical mountain. But we even have a magical mountain here in southern Utah called Pine Valley. So I was complaining to Saint Germain, I don't like having to drive 800 miles to get to Mount Shasta. He said, well, you can go to...
You can drive 40 minutes.
Drive 40 minutes and you'll be at a beautiful magic mountain. And most mountains are there because God created these higher levels of energy in the mountains. And when you go into the mountains, you can't help but shift your energy and your consciousness because there's a lot of beautiful beings in every mountain. Even Crestone, Colorado has a bunch of people and ascended beings. So just know they're all over the place, and you don't have to just go do books. You can go have experiences. So
thank you. Someone shared the website, so thank you for that.
Oh, good.
I
Thank
think
you.
we are. I think
So
we are.
we'll give
good.
you
Let's
all
go
a
ahead
blessing.
and do a blessing.
Okay. In the name of the Almighty, I am that I am, and by virtue of the great divine director, the Holy Spirit of God, we give you all a blessing for your health, your strength, your emotions, and your vitality. We bless you that you will learn and continue learning how to remove negative emotions because they suck out our energy. And if you lack energy, get rid of those negative emotions because as you get rid of them, pain goes away and energy comes back to you for your use. We bless you that you will use these techniques, use the lessons we've been teaching, do the applications, write down your goals, and proceed forward in your life because you'll not only be affecting you, but all your ancestors and all of your children and their children and their children's children. We bless you that you will be happy in your life, that you will bring forward all the gratitude you can, because as you bring gratitude, you receive the gifts of the divine. We bless you that your minds will be focused, that the negativity of the world will not affect you, that the organizational and beautiful love energy of God will come into your hearts, minds, and souls as you ask for it to come, as you breathe in the love and the organizational energy of God. It will spread throughout your body and organize and perfect your body, your mind, and your spirit. We bless you with these things in the name of the Almighty, I am that I am, and in the name of Jesus the Christ, Mother Mary, all the other ascended beings of light and love, and especially Saint Germain, for giving us the outline for this mentoring that we've been doing. And we thank all of them in the name of the Almighty, I am that I am. So be it, so it is. God bless all of you, and thank you, thank you, thank you, and we appreciate you attending, and thank you again, and keep watching the videos. They're going to remain there for a while, so keep moving forward.
That's right, and happy holidays, and much love to every one of you. Thank you for being on this journey with us, and we hope to see you again soon.
Lots of gratitude on Thursday.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.